Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Hello.
Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Database object.
Well, last time we looked at what we call database objects and associated terminologies. And the number of database objects that we talked about last time. And we did say that a database, once being designed, must have, by all means, must have these four objects. These four objects are what we call tables, queries, forms, and reports. They each can be one. We can have one for each, or we can have more than one for each. A table, if I may give a general summary, I hope you got this material and you try to read through. A table is the main object in any database. The table is an object that enables us to create the structure. Okay. The table is an object that enables us to create the structure for which we are going to capture data. And the table is the same object that holds the data that we capture in our database. We use it to design a structure that we rely on in order to create data or to capture data. Now, that means that a table has got what we call features that we use in order to design structures for capturing data. A table has got property or characteristics like columns. And therefore, a table that we design in Access here or in database must also have what we call columns. Which columns? We call them rows. So a table is at the heart of your database. It enables you to create structures that you are going to use to capture data, because a database is a collection, a shared collection of related data. So in your database, you're expected to have a lot of data, but that data must be captured or must exist based on certain structures, or there must be something that guides that data to exist the way we see it. And that something is what we call a table. The table is the same as an entity or an object from which we are able to collect data over time. So the table is the main object and it is the first object that we need to create. But when you are creating it, you are using it to come up with the structures that you will rely on. Okay, you use it to design some things that you will rely on in order to later on capture data with it. Now, that means that if you're trying to design a database, you must think of the possible structures or the things that will make up your table. These structures are predominantly determined through what we call fields or the columns of the table. Now, if you want to, let us say, create a database called student, then it means you must think of what tables or what entities should be in that database. And if you think of the table or entities, then you must also think of the fields or the columns of that table. The fields or the columns are those actual elements which form the table, and they are the ones you are going to base on to capture data. We call them properties of the table or attributes of the table. So it is those attributes that we base on to capture data. We call them fields. So you can have attributes like name, gender. Those ones become columns of any table. But the table is an object that enables you to create structure from which you are able to capture data. Also, remember that when we create a table, its work is for allowing us design structures for capturing data. But the table is not something ideal that we need to use to enter data. For it, it is used to create something we base on to enter data. But we use another object called a form in order to enter data into our database. Of course, this data can be entered using a form, but that data is stored in the table itself. That shows how powerful a table is. So to enter data in our database, we need another object called a form. And now if we want to see the existing data we have in our database, we use another object called a query. A query can be used to see or to display records which are there in our database, or to even perform what we call calculations on existing data to produce new sets of data itself. Okay. I can tell you that maybe salary for the employees is 100,000 each. But every month they get maybe housing allowance or communication allowance of 5% of their salary. We can use a query to determine communication allowance of those employees based on that 5%, which is done based on, or which is computed out of the overall salary, which they get at the end of the month. So we need a query to display records in our database and also perform some form of calculation if we desire. The last object is a report, and a report is an output from your database. Just like we have a report here, report is an output from your database. It shows a summary. It is actually the information. It shows a summary of the data that you have in your database. So the report is an output, and those are the 4 objects of our database. All these 4 objects depend on each other, but the most important object is the table. If a table is not there, the report can't be created, the form can't be created, and the query cannot also be designed if a table doesn't exist, because for you to create a form, you must have a table. For you to create a query, you must have a table. For you to create a report, if a report is an output from the database, you must have a table. So those are the 4 objects of our database. Now, we also looked at data types last time, which we are going to experience again. We looked at primary key, foreign key, data validation, data integrity, data redundancy, data consistency. Indeed, in that material has what we call practicals in it. And today we want to try and do some practical. I am hopeful that you downloaded that material and you read through it. So in the practical session, what are we interested in? In the practical session, we want to design a simple database, and in that practical session where I want to design a database, we'll be interested in working out these 4 objects. We'll be interested in creating a database, but we know in that database that we are trying to create, we must have a table, we must have a form, we must have queries, we must have reports in that database that we want to create. So it is upon us to always know that once you are designing a database, there must be what we call objects in that database. You must start thinking, you are thinking of creating a database, okay, the question is, do I have objects? Which objects am I going to have in the database, or which tables will form my database? So for instance, we are saying, create a database called BIT students, okay? This could be the name of our database. Now, if this is the name of our database, then the question is, which table should we design in this database? That will be the question. Our database is called this BIT students. Yes. But we are saying create a table with the name student and with the following fields. So in this database called BIT students, we should create a table with the name student. So this is the name of the table. And do the following. We create this table called students with the following fields. Where you see fields are listed and there is PK in a bracket, it means that that is a primary key field. Also, when you are seeing fields are listed with the FK in it, it means it is a foreign key field. Remember last time we said a foreign key is a field which links the two tables together. The foreign key is actually a primary key of one table, and then it is linked or it appears in another table. So if you see fields listed with the word FK next to it, it means that field is a primary key, is a foreign key rather, FK. If you see fields listed with the word PK, it means that field is a primary key field. So our database is called BIT students. In this database, we must create a table, okay? Later on, I will close this interface and you may not see it, but we have to create a table with the name students. So the table we are going to design in this database is called student. But this table must have the following columns or fields: the registration number, first name, last name, gender, date of birth. Those are the fields that that table is expected to have. The fields are very important to understand.
No, I'm not going to send this one. I'm sending the one from
45.
Sarah, mute your mic.
So the fields, like I was saying, are very, very important to understand because they are the ones that represent the structures of the table. So if you don't have or you don't have the fields, then it means your table is going to hang. Okay. So the database we are saying is called BIT students. That's the database we are creating. That is just like a file name. The database name is more or less like a file name. But the objects that are going to be there is the most important thing, because the object must have fields. If the object has no fields or the table has no fields, then there is a problem. And that means you are not going to achieve what you want to do. So we have the following fields to make up our table: registration number, first name, last name, gender, date of birth. Sometimes we abbreviate date of birth as DOB. And then we have fields such as marital status. We have fields such as age. We have fields such as email. We have fields such as phone number. We have fields such as allowance. So how many fields are these? Those are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those are 10 fields. So we are going to create a database, yes, but among the objects, we have already seen there is a table for us to deal with or to add inside that database. The table is called student with the 10 fields or with the 10 columns: registration number, first name, last name, gender, date of birth, marital status, age, email, phone number, allowance. Now, if we design our database and the table, okay, then it is expected that we should have some data in that table of our database. That's why here we are required. We are required to create a form interface for entering records for 5 students. So we are going to enter records for 5 students using that form we are creating. Then after that, you can't run a query if you don't have records. So after entering the data of 5 students, then we can now run queries. Remember, query is an object used to display record. We can now generate a query to display the list of all female students. Generate a query to display all married students. Generate the list of students who are less than 20 years. Okay. And then maybe generate a list of all the male students who are single. Generate the list of all the female students who are greater than 22 years. Generate the list of all the students whose allowance is greater than 250, and then create reports for each query that you have generated. You see? So we are talking about a table, we are talking about a form, we are talking about the queries and the reports. That means we are talking about the 4 objects of our database, and that's how we must design databases. We must have the 4 objects. So at this point in time, I want to switch to another interface of my screen here, such that you can see what I'm trying to do here. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so if we are to design a database, then we need to have our database management system. The database management system that we are using for this course to design a database is Microsoft Access. It is Microsoft Access. So at this point in time, do you see where my cursor is moving? Are you seeing my cursor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you're seeing my cursor is fine.
Yes,
I'm getting started. So
I
Access is among Office applications. Access is among the Office application. So if I go to my start button here, I should be able to locate Microsoft Access. So do we see this small interface here? Where I am right now, are we able to see it?
So we are seeing.
Okay, so I was saying that Access is an Office application. If you go to your start button on your machine, if you are using Windows 10, you should be able to go to start and then you go to all apps. And then under Microsoft Office, you are able to find there Microsoft Access. If you're using Windows 7, you just go to start button and then you can either go to all programs like this. And then if you click on all program, then you should be able to scroll around here and look for what we call Microsoft Office as a folder. It is a folder because it is a collection of applications. When Office is installed, it comes with many files or with many programs. So under Microsoft Office, there is Microsoft Access. So I'm able to load what we call Microsoft Access. It is a simple application, but also complex in nature, depending on the type of work to do with the database that you are trying to do with it. It is complex in nature. This is how we get started with Access. So are we seeing this interface here, which has loaded?
Yes, I can.
Okay. If you are seeing this interface here, this is our Access interface. This is the first interface to get started with in Microsoft Access. Now on this interface, where my cursor is moving here on the left side, this is where you are able to view previous databases. This is where you are able to view databases that have been designed of recent from. But then you are not interested in viewing or opening previous databases. You're interested in creating your own database. That's why you need to proceed to this area where we have available templates. I hope you can see my cursor is rolling here, where we have available templates. Now, the templates are here to allow you get started with your database. Now, you need to get started by clicking on blank database. You need to get started by clicking on blank database. And good enough by default, this blank template is already active. That's why you may see or you may notice that it has yellowish color in it. It's already active. So usually we get started by loading blank database. Now, the blank database comes together with what we call input interface. So when you choose blank database here, of course, it is chosen by default. You need to start with the blank one because you are starting a new database. It is chosen. But then on the right side here, the blank database has got what we call input interface. That's why it's still on your right side where my cursor is here. That's why on the right side here, you are seeing also something called a blank database where my cursor is. And below it down here, we have something called file name. We have something here called file name. So do we see where my cursor is here? I want somebody to confirm whether you are seeing where my cursor is right now.
Yes,
Yes,
I
we
see.
can.
Okay, so here is the file name. Where you see my cursor is where we type the name of the database. The file name is the same as the name of the database. Okay? Where you see the file name, that's where we type the name of the database. So by default, it comes with this word here, database 1 or database 2 or database 3. That's what you may see in this cell under file name. But you click in this cell and you remove whatever word you see appearing there, database 1, 2, or 3, you remove it. Now, when you remove it, you can now type the name of your database. Okay? So, assuming we are creating a database called, let me type it in full, business. We are creating a database called business information technology students. We are designing a database called Business Information Technology Students. That's the name of our database. So I type the name of the database in this area. So the file name is the same as the name of the database. After typing the name here, the next thing that you need to do is to save this database. The next thing that you need to do is to save the database. If you don't save your database, then it means that later on you will have to do the same. So after typing the name of the database, we need to save. But how do we save? Next to the database name here or file name, there is what we call a folder-like jacket here, this yellow jacket. If I point on it, you can see it is telling me browse for a location to put your database. It is telling me to look for where to save the database. So I click on this folder jacket here, and then it will take me to where I can save my database. So it is loading. Here I am. So you are familiar with this type of interface. Once you see this document and library, it means you are attempting to save work. Now, ideal location where you can save work are here, including documents and library, but it's better for easy allocation or for easy location of your file, you can put it on the desktop. If you want to locate your file very easily, put it on the desktop. So I select desktop by just going to the left panel here. I select desktop. Now, when you click on desktop on the left panel here, all the things you see here where my cursor is in the middle area here are the different things that are on the desktop. But you want to save it on the desktop, you just click on desktop, so it will show you the things which are on your desktop. If you had a folder, like here are different folders on my desktop, you will just double click on any folder and you save this file inside that folder if you had a folder. If you have no folder, you can even create a folder. For instance, I have no folder right now. I can create one. By going up here, there is what we call a new folder. If you are using other versions of Windows, like Windows 10, you will see a yellow-like jacket up here. If you point on it, it's called create new folder. So when you point on it, you are still able to create folder. I'm using Windows 7, and therefore for me, I can see the word new folder straight away here. So a folder, remember, is like a house or a structure or a jacket in which you can save work, just like you see these other ones. So if I want to create a folder, I click on new folder like this, and then it is able to load itself and allow me to create. So you see it is down here. So I remove this word new folder and I create my folder. Maybe I name the folder BIT database. I'm naming my folder BIT database. So this will be the folder or the house in which my database that I'm creating called BIT students or Business Information Technology students will be kept. The database will be stored in this folder here. After creating it, I go ahead and double click on this folder, such that it is now open, it is blank. Remember, under file name here, you're supposed to state the name of your file. Which name is actually the name of the database that you were typing here. So you don't change anything here. It is still the same name of your database, which is your file name. After that, I click on OK. Once I click on OK, it means I have saved this database. That's why when you look at the file name here right now, you find that something has been added to this database called Business Information Technology Student.accdb. ACC here where you see .acc. ACC is the short form for access, and then DB is the short form for database. Meaning that this file here is a database type of file created using access. And you can see below here, it shows you the path, different paths you go through in order to reach that database called BIT database. So it is saved in this folder called BIT database. So to proceed with my database creation, you don't stop here. Here you have just typed the name of the database. You proceed and you click on this button down called create. If you want to continue to create your database, you click on create. The create button is just down below the database name. So I click on create in order to proceed with my database creation. Now, on this interface, I am able to now proceed with my database design. Remember, we said creating the database name is not enough. The database must have those 4 objects. We already have a table given to us called student. So in this database, one of the objects that we are going to capture data about is called students. So we have to design this student as a table in form of a table. And then as we design it as a table, it will give us the structure that we can use to capture data about students. Now, when Access opens like this, there are 2 parts you are able to see. Up here, these are the main tools: home, create, external, database, office, and so on. These are the tools you are able to see. We are able to use those tools to design our database further. But on the left side here, we are seeing something called all access objects. The all access object area is the all access object area enables us to view all the objects of our database. That's why we are seeing something here called table 1 right now. Do we see something here where my cursor is called table 1? I want you to confirm this.
Yes. Yes.
Are we seeing it?
Yes.
So all the 4 objects of our database will appear in this area. That's why we are seeing a sample table. This table is not our table, it's a sample one. And where is that table? It is this one here on the right side. So this is the name of our database. When Access opens up, we see this interface in divided into 2. There is what we call the Access object interface, and then the specific object when it is opened here. Now, the default object that is open here is called a table. So what you need to do is we need to close this table. Table 1, hope you are seeing table 1. Now, table 1 is this very table. Table 1 is this very table. This table is not good for us. Why? Because it comes here by default with the software. And we are not the ones who have created it. We are not the ones who have created it. So what we need to do to this table 1, which we are seeing appearing here, we need to close it such that we design our own table, which has its own columns and own fields. So where do we close this table 1 from that the Access has come with? We close it from the right side here. On the right side here, there's an X button. All the 4 objects of our databases will have this close button here. This X button is for closing that object. Not, please, let us not close using this high level upper button here. This very upper button where you see my cursor is for closing the whole Access. But you are going to be closing those objects you are creating. You close the whole Access when it is the last thing to do. So we are going to close this table from just here, this X button that you are seeing, where my cursor is on this line. So I close it from here. Why do I need to close it? This table, Access has come with it. It is not our table. We need to design our own table. What is the name of our table? The table we want to design and capture data about in this database, the table is called students. So we are going to design a table called student with the following fields: registration number, first name, last name, gender, date of birth, and so on. So what we have achieved so far is 1, we have created our database, but we have a big task to go. We haven't designed our table in it, which is the first object. So to create a table, we make the use of this main tool here called create. Do we see this main tool up here next to home called create? I want people to confirm this. Do we see this tool called
Yes.
create? Do we see this tool
Yes.
called create?
Yes.
Yes, this tool called
Yes,
create.
we do.
If I click on it, it is the tool that can enable me create all the 4 objects of my database. The moment I click on this main tool next to home called create, I am able to use it to create tables. That's why you are seeing this ribbon called tables. I'm able to use this tool to create what we call queries, either using Query Wizard or Query Design. I'm able to use this tool to create forms. I'm able to use this tool to create what we call reports. That means this tool called create is the main tool from which I can create all the 4 objects of my database. Now, how do I get started with designing the first object called a table? Our table is called student. So I go to create, click on it, then I go to what we call table design. You are creating a table, so you remain around this ribbon called table, but you select what we call table design. We said a table is a structure that allows us, an object that allows us to create a structure for capturing data. So indeed, to create the structure for capturing data, we need to design those structures. So you go to create, on the tables ribbon here, you go to table design. You go to table design. So I click on table design. And the table design will give me indeed a tabular interface to design my table. Now what Access does is that the name of the table comes last. You will put the name of the table at the last, as the last. But you start by indicating the fields of your table. The name of the table will be the last. So you can see, indeed, it is a tabular form. We have a field called, we have a column here called field name. Now, under field name, we are able to design or indicate the columns that will make up our table. Our table is called student, but the question is, and now let us get practical to reality. You are students. What are those things or attributes that you have that you think we can use or base on them to capture data about you as a student? Those attributes that you have, those properties or characteristics that you have as a student that we can use to capture data about you are the things that we call columns or attributes or fields. So today we want to I want our table to have the following fields. So under field names, I simply list my fields. One of them is this, registration number. And you should be able to start thinking. You will tell me later on, what type of data do you normally write under your registration number? Start thinking, how do you normally write your registration number? Because I'm going to ask you shortly. The next field is what we call first name. Are we still seeing what I'm doing? I want people to confirm this. Are we seeing what I'm doing? So the columns of your table, if you have a column on a paper, later I'm going to send this case study here to you. Use it in a tabular form so that you can use it to do it later on at your own time. But all the columns of your table, you list them under the field name. And then by doing that, you are creating the structure for the table. Then we have what we call gender here. And then we have what we call date of birth. We have what we call date of birth. Then I move to the next cell down. We have marital status. And then we have what we call age. Then email. Phone number. Don't you think these really are true properties about you that the university can use to record or to capture data about you? Even on the normal forms that you fill to apply to join the university, some of these things are there. They are stated there and you respond to them. And then we have allowance. Maybe these students, they get some allowance. Okay. So under this column called field names, we list the various fields or the structures that will make up our table. Remember, the columns or the fields are the things that you are going to base on to capture data. For instance, under registration number, we expect to type some data. Now, once you have listed all your fields vertically, the next thing is to go to this next column here called data types. So do we see my cursor on this column called data types? Do we see my cursor on this column called data types?
Yes, we
Yes, we see.
Okay, so if you are seeing that's good, we can proceed. Now, data types. In these same notes I sent you, the slides, data types is used to restrict, or we use data types to restrict and indicate the specific type of data that is expected to be captured under a field. That's the purpose of a data type. Or that is what a data type is. It is an element in a database that allows you to restrict or to specify or to indicate the type of data expected under a field. So when it comes to registration number, by data type, we mean what type of data do we expect under registration number? When it comes to first name, what type of data do we expect? Last name, what type of data do we expect? In that same slide, there are many data types there. Now, if you want to know the available data types, you click on this drop-down arrow just to know the available data types and choose from them. You click on this drop-down arrow. Now, do we see these various data types listed here? Are we able to see these various data types listed here? Hello? Hello?
Yes.
You are able to see these data types which are listed here on this drop down I've clicked on.
Yes, so we're able to see them.
Hello.
Yes, now if you want to see the various data types in Access that you can use to assign
Yes.
fields, then click on that drop down arrow under data type and you're able to see them. Now, text is the first data type. When you are entering your fields, by default, they are all given a data type called text. Text is the default data type here in Access. Now, text is a data type which can hold values which are either numbers or alphabets or any other character. Text is a data type you choose or you assign to a field, especially if you know under that field, you are going to enter any value. It can be a combination of letters and numbers with even other characters like slash, hash, and so on. So text is a universal data type. It holds any type of data. So if you have a field and you know under that field there is a mixture of characters, then you can choose text for it. Memo, but then you see text holds up to around 255 characters. Each data type has got its property down here. That's why you are seeing field size for text is 255, meaning that if you choose it, it will hold values up to 255. If you are typing something there as a data, it should not go beyond 255 characters. Now, memo is a data type which is higher than just a text. It works the same way like a text, but it can hold more values, more than 500 characters. And it can allow you to type data which is in form of even a paragraph. So if you have a field and under that field, the data which is expected is a length paragraph or a length response, then you choose memo as a data type. Though In databases of your level here, we don't find ourselves using a lot of that. A data type called number. Number is a data type we assign to a field where the values we expect under that field is going to be figures only or numerical values in the range of 0 up to 9. If you know under that field, the data expected is only plain numbers, then you choose a data type called number. But when you assign a number to a field, then you cannot type there letter A when you're entering data under that field, because letter A is not a number. So number is the data type that allows you to enter only numerical values in the range of 0 to 9, or depending on which values you are entering. Even if it is big, how it is in the range of 0 to 9. Date stroke time. Date stroke time is a data type you assign to a field which has something to do with the month, the date, and the year in it. For instance, if you have a field called date of birth, date of manufacture, date of joining, date of examination, date of graduation, expiry date, date of marriage, and so on, the data type there is expected to be date stroke type. So if you have any field to do with the date of something, then the right data type is date stroke type. Currency. Currency is the data type we assign to a field when you want that field to have numbers, but then when those numbers should be able to have what we call currency symbols attached to them. Maybe you want to write 3,000, but you want UGX to appear to it. So that UGX is a currency symbol for Uganda, or you want to write 5 and then dollar appears there. If you want currency symbols to be attached to figures, then you use currency as a data type. Auto number. Auto number is a data type we assign to a field. Each of these data type must be assigned to a specific field based on your knowledge of the data you want to capture. Auto number is a data type we assign to a field where the values under that field should be generated automatically by the software. The values will be generated automatically. We normally assign it to fields that are going to be numbers of records, fields that will be used to just number record as number 1, number 2, number 3, something like that. So if you want the software to assign numbers automatically to each record you are capturing, then you can assign auto number in that field such that under that field the numbers appear automatically, not you typing in. We shall look at how auto number works. Yes stroke no is a data type where you have only 2 options. You have to choose one of them. Married, yes. Married, no. You choose one of them, not both. So if you have that type of scenario where you want people to capture or to input one option out of only 2, then you choose yes or no type of data type. It doesn't mean that what you will see there is only yes or no. It can be anything, but when somebody has got to choose one only in between the 2 options given. Only object is a data type we assign to a field where the values are going to be images or photographs. If you have, maybe we had a field called student photograph here, then the right data type will be OLE. OLE. OLE stands for object linking and embedding. That's what we mean by OLE. OLE. Object linking and embedding. That's what this OLE means in full. Object linking and embedding. This data type is for only fields where the values that you are going to capture or the data you are going to capture is going to be in form of image, it's going to be in form of picture, it's going to be in form of maybe a diagram of something. Hyperlink is a data type we assign to a field where the values are going to be an address or a link to certain information on a web page. If you know that under certain field will be linked to a web page, then you use hyperlink. If you know you are going to assign data type, you are going to capture some data under a certain field, and this data is already typed using another application, then you use what we call attachment. It means you're just going to upload a file which is existing, prepared using another application. So you use attachment. Calculated is a data type we assign to a field where the values are going to be calculated based on another field. We can have one field, and then we can use this field to calculate and get the values for another field, which we rarely use at your level here. And then lookup wizard. Lookup wizard is a data type that we assign to a field. Lookup wizard is a data type we assign to a field where the values are pre-typed or typed in advance, such that the users who are entering data, they don't type the data, but they rather choose that data as a drop-down list. For instance, if we have a field called let us see, we have a field called gender. We can use lookup wizard as a data type for gender. And if we do so, it means under gender, we first list all the values that we know we are going to capture under gender. It is either male or female. Those are the two standard values for gender. Now, what happened, and even maybe marital status, we can have single, married. We cannot have standard marital status called both. We have either single or married. So we can build a lookup wizard for marital status and gender. Now, building lookup wizard means you are creating a list of data in advance, so that when it comes to capturing that data, you don't type it, you just click on a drop-down arrow and you will find that data there, you pick it. This is done to ensure that sometimes users don't type wrong things. They are guided, they just click on a drop-down and choose from the available lists of data which is there. So you can have lookup wizard if you are sure under that field you need a lookup wizard, or you need those values to be inbuilt before and then you choose them up. So now, having gone through data types, can we now assign data types to these various fields we have? Now, you can see all the fields at the moment, they have their data type called text, because by default, when you're creating a field, it gives it a data type called text, because it is a universal data type. But now, I want to ask you, and you need to respond. How do you normally write your registration number? Is it plain figures or it is a mixture of figures and alphabets? I need a response on that. We are doing something
Both
that
figures and alphabets.
So if the way you write your registration
The
number
mixture.
is a mixture of figures and alphabet. So we click on the data type here and we choose. Because text, we say it is a data type that accommodates both figures and alphabets and any other character like slash, comma, and so on. Now, if you realize that the data type will be text, you don't even need to change it, because even if I click on this drop down and I choose text, it will still remain the text. So if you realize the data type will be text, you don't need to change. Okay, first name. How do you normally write your first name? Is it using alphabets or using mixture of alphabets and numbers or other characters? Please let us participate.
Alphabet.
Yes,
Alphabet.
your first name is written. You write your name by getting combination of letters. By getting combination of letters. Maybe Agnes, letter A, G, N, E, S. Those are alphabets. So the data type remains text. Last name is the same. You are also writing your last name using a combination of letters. So those are text. Letters are texts. So the data type will remain text. We have said when the data type you know will remain text, you don't change. Gender. You are here known as either a male person or a male student or a female student. Now let us use lookup wizard for gender. Lookup wizard for gender means that we shall type male and female there in advance here when we are designing our table. When we go to entering data, we shall find gender. We shall find under gender there is a drop-down arrow, and we just click on it and we choose male and female. So how do we create lookup wizard as a data type for gender? And we use that lookup wizard as a data type for fields where the values to be entered are few and they can be shared. One, they are few. The two, the values can be shared. So I click on this drop down arrow. By the way, you are assigning data type to each field. So I am on this field here called gender. So I have a data type called, I have a field called gender. So I go here on this row line to its data type. I click on this drop down, then I look for what we call lookup wizard. When I click on lookup wizard, remember lookup wizard enables you to list values that you want to appear under that field, such that when you're capturing data, you don't type it. So my lookup wizard is loading. I have to be patient with it a bit. Are we able to see this interface? Are we able to see this interface here? This is the lookup wizard interface.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Somebody is saying no. So this is the lookup wizard interface. You choose the second option here. There is this first option. I want the lookup field to get values from another table or query. You don't have another table or query right now. Your table is this very table you are designing. So there is no table. That first option is not good. So you go to the second option. I will type in the values that I want. So you click on this second option. Why is the second option better? The second option is better because it enables you to type the list of values that you want on your own. I will type in the values that I want. You are the one who knows the values that you want. So you choose the second option and then you click on this button here called next. Select the second option and you click on this button called next. Now when you click on next, this interface here enables you where you are seeing COL1, this is column 1. Under column 1 here, or COL1, you click in that tiny cell and you list the values that you want to appear as a drop-down list for somebody to choose. So under gender, these are the values expected. It is male, and the other value expected is female. When it is time for entering data, for each student, you expect to either enter female or to enter male. So the actual values that we expect under that field is male and female. So that's what we build here. So we can choose any value. We can choose either male or female for any student. There is no problem, but we have to build it in advance and then we choose it using drop down. So after listing your values here, you click on next. What label would you like for your fields? The fields where you're building lookup wizard is called gender. That's what you are seeing up here. So there's nothing for you to change. Then you just click on finish. There's a 3 buttons here, cancel, back to take you to previous stage and finish. So I click on finish to indeed finish the process of creating that lookup wizard. Meaning when I'm capturing data, I will see a drop-down list on the gender and click on it and choose either male or female. Date of birth. The data type here is date stroke type. Remember we said that for any data that is to do with the date and the year and the month in it, we choose date stroke type. Marital status. Also let us use lookup wizard for marital status. Because under marital status, what type of data do we expect? Single, married, divorced? widow,
Widowed.
widower, those things. So we can build those ones such that somebody just chooses among those ones. So we can still go to marital status is a field. I click on its data type here in the second column. Click on this drop down and I go to lookup wizard. Again, under lookup wizard, remember you choose the second option. I will type in the values that I want. And then you click on next. So that you indeed type in those values. What values do we expect under marital status? We expect single. How many of you here are single? All of you, isn't it? Hey, you are laughing. You are not single.
Uh-huh.
Apart from strong.
Apart from who? Okay, so we
Strong, I
expect
see they are
under
both
marital
single.
status a student to indicate that he or she is single or married. So I list this value here, married, or by bad luck,
Divorce.
divorced,
Divorce.
or
Die.
by a widow. That's also by grace of God, the God who takes away. So that one is.
I think it's just simpler to say widowed.
Is what?
I think it's simpler to just say widowed, like ED.
Okay.
So that if you're a
But this one applies to
widower
which?
or a widow, you just
Now. So if you have lost your wife or your husband, we can assign you this data called widow, like one of you is suggesting. So under marital status, we expect any of these values here for any student. So we have listed it. These values will appear as drop
How
down.
about if she was stolen?
It means you are
Excuse me, sir.
divorced. If she was stolen, you remain divorced or single
Excuse me,
now.
sir.
Yes. Somebody
Excuse
say,
me, sir.
excuse me. Yes.
How come my access is saying on marital status that the lookup wizard doesn't apply to this field of this data type?
What is your on which field did you put it? Are you sure you have put it on marital status?
Yes, I'm there.
Maybe you have not. Maybe you have left it on date of birth. Please check. If you have left it on date of birth, it will not allow, because date of birth involves unique characters to do with the date, month, and year. Are you sure it is on marital status?
Yes, that's where the cursor is, the breaking cursor.
On marital status. And you are under that column called data type. Are you under that column called data type?
So because it was working well, only that I am trying it several times.
What is it doing?
Telling me the same.
I can't hear you properly.
Anyway, let us. It is still telling me that the lookup wizard doesn't apply later.
That the lookup wizard doesn't apply.
Yes.
I don't see why it should not allow. Because marital status is not like it's not like that the complicated data types. The complicated field is there is the date of birth, because the values there are unique. Unless if something has happened differently there, but it shouldn't fail because we are talking about single, married, and so on. These type of values are actually text values, but they are being listed. So it shouldn't, I can't figure out right now where that problem could be coming from, but I know it
Yeah,
will
so
not work for
it has
the date
accepted.
of birth.
It has accepted now. It has accepted. Thanks.
Have you listed single, married, divorced, and widowed?
I'm working on listing.
Okay. When you're done with the listing, you click on next, and then you click on finish. When you're done listing, you click on next and finish. Now, age. The data type for age, how do you normally write your age? If you know you're going to write your age in form of numbers, just then you choose the number. If you know you want to write your age with the numbers and you add years to it, then you leave it on the text. But if you want to just write in terms of numbers only without adding, of course, it is known that age is in years. Then you can use numbers, either write 20, 30, and so on. So for age, we can use the number. Email. Your email is made up of text characters and other characters like ads. So the data type that is appropriate is text. Phone. The way you write your phone numbers, by the way, the data type should be text because phone number even is supposed to be written using the zip code of the country. And the zip code starts with plus 256 for the case of Uganda. So because it starts with the plus something, the data type therefore is a text because of that plus. That plus sign is not a numerical value. So for phone number, the data type should also be text. Much as you write figures there, you keep leaving out the country code, zip code, but the ideal thing is to start writing using zip code. Somebody saying excuse?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes. Hello?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, Abby. Is there a post and long text?
Is there? Sorry, we can't hear you properly. Hello? Hello?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
So I'm sorry to interrupt your lesson, but I fear we are there's a lecture which has begun, and the lecturer responsible has told me to say something.
To say something.
Yes, to beg you, sir.
Hey, there's another lecture which has started.
Yes, sir. But I see you're recording, so I think you'd continue. Then we catch up with you.
Okay, it's fine.
I don't know if it's okay.
Let me record it. Let me proceed. I record it, and then you will get the recordings there. The students who don't have the class can stay on. Then the ones who have, it's fine. You can exit and you attend that class. I will avail these recordings as soon as the class has ended.
Okay, so the recording will be on the platform, or it will
both. I will share it.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
I will share it both on all the platforms and even on the course page.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Well, we now need to assign data type for allowance. Allowance is earned in form of cash or in form of money. We are talking about money here. And that means that this money will have to be entered in form of figures for each student. So the data type for allowance therefore should be number, because we are going to enter that allowance in form of figures. So we have finished to assign data types. Now, to complete the design of our table, we need to look through this table and pick one field that we can assign what we call a primary key. Primary key means you are stating that that field will not have values under its share. That's what it means. So when you design your table, look through and pick one field among those existing ones, and you assign it what we call a primary key. Assigning primary key to a field, you assigning a key means you are locking a field. That when you enter a registration number 001T, that registration number is unique for that student only. You cannot use that registration number for another student. So you must look through your table and identify one field whose values you think cannot be repeated. We know names can be shared, gender can be shared, date of birth can be shared, marital status can be the same, age can be the same, but telephone number also is unique. That is true. But for student contexts, let's concentrate and assign primary key to registration number. And once we do that, it means that registration number will be used to uniquely identify or differentiate records of students. So how do you assign a primary key to a field? You click on that field like this. So I'm on a field called registration number. I want to assign it primary key. I click on it. Then after clicking on this field called registration number, up here there is something called primary key. Up here there is something called primary key. Then I click on primary key. If not, I click on a field where I want to assign primary key, right click on that field again and select primary key. This is the way of removing a primary key if you have assigned it to a wrong field and assigning primary key. You just click on a field, right click on it and you select primary key. It will be assigned to the field. If not, right click on the field and up here on the top part here, there is what we call primary key, and you click on it, is assigned to that field. So after assigning primary key to your field is when you close to a field. This is when you close this table. You have to close this table in order to save it with the name. So I'm trying to close it from here. So I click on this X button. I click on this X button here to close this table. Now it will be asking me whether I want to save changes to the table or I'll have to accept. Okay, the message has popped up here. Do you want to save changes to the design of table 1? So I click on yes. Because I want to save this table here, I haven't saved it yet. So I click on yes to save it. The name of the table, here you will see inside here something called table 1. So I remove it. You have to remove that one table completely and you type the name of your table. My table is called students. My table is called students. So after saving my table, where is my table as an object? So after typing the name of my table, I click on this OK button so that it is saved. Now, when my table is saved, where do I find it? I find it here in this area, under this area called all access objects. So the first object is called tables, and my specific table is called students. Now, the next thing for me to do, hello? Hello? Anyone hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We're hearing you.
Okay, it's fine if you are here, because some students have exited the class. They have another class. Okay, do you still see what I'm doing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I've designed my table. You see, we have taken long on the table because we said it is the most important object. So we have designed the first object. So we have achieved two things. Created a database, designed an object called a table in it with all those fields. But then, assuming you have made a mistake and you wanted to go back and you correct a field with this data type, how do you go about it? If you want to go back and check what you have just been doing, what you do is, here is your table on the left panel here. You right click on, you go to the table name, right click on it like that, and you go to design view. Okay? If you have forgotten maybe one field and you want to add it, or you want to change its data type, or you want to delete a field, you go to the table because the field is in the table. So the table is here called student. You right click on it and you go to design view. Design view, when you click on design view, it takes you back to where. So here you can make any change in terms of the field and the data type. When you make the change, you close the table from here. It will ask you to save changes, you save. When you just double click, or when you right click and you choose open, when you choose open, you are just trying to look at how your table now looks like. You see, this is how your table looks like now. And you can see that this is now a structure you can base on to capture data. So when you open, it means you are seeing now the structure of your table, how it looks like. But you can't make any change here to those fields right now. Here is just for view. When you open, you're just viewing the structure of the table. So I close it. So you have forgotten a field you want to add, you go to the table after closing it. You don't leave it open, you first close it. So you right click and you go to design view. You can add anything here. Now, let's get to the second object. We are required to create a form and capture data of 5 students. And you are the students. I'm going to ask each of you to give me his or her detail and I will capture it. So get prepared. Just after like 5 minutes, we are going to capture the data. Create, we are supposed to use another object to post data or to capture data. That object is called a form. So to capture data using a form, we have to create it. How do we create a form? We go to this main tool again called create, if you remember. This tool called create enables us to create all the 4 objects. We have created a table. We are now dashing here where my cursor is to create what we call a form. We are now dashing here where my cursor is to create a form. Create, and then we go to this area called forms. Now, to create a form quickly, you use what we call form wizard. Form wizard is here. In some office applications, you have to click on this one here called more forms and you get form wizard. In some applications, but you can also find form wizard very clearly here if you are using Office 2010 and upwards, 10, 13, 16, 19. I want to create a form, so I go to create, and then under forms, I go to form wizard. So I click on form wizard. Form wizard enables us to create a form quickly. But then, what you need to know is that the form is going to be used to post data. So the form must have fields on it. The form must have fields on it. The fields which are on the form, must come from the table, because the form is used to enter data into the table of our database. So the form must have the same fields like the table has. So you can, that's why you are seeing it's telling us here you can choose from more than one table or query. And here it is showing us the name of our table. Our table is called students. So we are supposed to create our form based on that table called student. And the table called student has these fields here. These are the fields of the table. So what we are supposed to do is, this blank part here is the form. We are supposed to get these fields of our table and add them onto the form, so that the form has the same property like the table. And we are able to use it to post data into the table. So how do we take these fields here onto our form? You can use this arrow here, this single forward arrow. This arrow is pointing to the right, it means it's pointing forward. So if you use this single arrow here, pointing forward, it means you are taking these fields one by one here. If you can use this double forward arrow to take all of them at once here. You need all fields of the table on the form. So I can use this single forward arrow. And then one field goes, and I can use this single back arrow to take that field even back. You see that? This back one here. So I can use double forward arrow. That person who is around either a farm and so on should mute his or her microphone.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23.
So I use double forward arrow.
26.
Now I've brought the fields which are in my table onto the form here. Remember, I'm using the form must have the same fields like the
lot
table.
of noise.
Into the mute.
Please mute your microphone. Those people who have left their mics on. So why do I need the fields of the table called student to go to the form? Because
Where you guys remove your face now? You're wasting our time.
are we seeing what I have on my screen?
No.
Are we seeing what I
Can
have?
some of you mute?
Are we still seeing this interface? I need you to confirm. Are you still seeing this interface?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the form. It must have the same fields like the table. So I click on next here after adding the fields to the form. I click on next. And then what layout would you like for the form? Columnar, table, and data sheet and justified are just layouts for the form. So by default, it is always on columnar. Next time we shall see how table are justified and data sheet look like as layout. So here is, I leave it on columnar. It is already selected. I go to next. Now, what title do you want for the form? The form comes with the name of the table. So I click here where there is student, I add the word form. So that it is now called student form. And then I just add the word form to it, so that it is a form. And then I click on finish. Now when you click on finish, this is how your form looks like. When you click on finish, so when I click on finish, you can see this is my form. Don't you see now it looks much smarter and it is looking a better interface for us to capture data. And when you look at your left panel here, you now have an object called a form. So this is the second object. I can close it from here, from this X button, the same way you close a table. I can close it from here. Whenever I need it, it is here. It is called a form. It is called a form, and it is under an object called form. If I need it to enter that, I just double click on it, and it is here. It is open. Here it is open. So what I can do is now, I can use it to enter data, and we are going to verify that we enter 5 records here using this form. These records are posted into the table of our database. Can we have somebody here responding, giving us his or her details? The first person to give us his or her registration number. Please let us speed up. We are running out of time. Somebody to share with us. You can give us your details. Any sample values just for us to use.
S19.
Give us your registration number. S19.
Yes,
S19.
Uh-huh.
I'm capturing it here. I'm typing it here under registration number. S19. Uh-huh.
All right. Uh-huh. Stroke.
Yes.
ASC.
ASC, yes.
Stroke. DBA.
DBS.
Stroke. 026.
026. Is that where it ends?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we go to your first name. What's your first name?
First. Morris.
Morris. What about your last name?
Taban.
Taban. Okay. What is your gender?
Male.
So I click, you see under gender, we create a lookup wizard. So I don't type here male. I click on this drop down arrow here and I choose male. This is how we are testing. This is how we are testing the functionality of a lookup wizard, how it works. So, date of birth. Give us your date of birth.
1996.
Pardon?
1996.
That is the year.
1996.
What about the month?
5th of December.
Okay, you are saying 5th of December 1996. Marital status, I also click on this drop down. What is the status that we should
Single.
put here? Single. What could be the age?
Single.
What could be the age? What is the age?
24.
24.
Yes.
What is your email?
MorrisTaban@gmail.com.
Okay. morristaban@gmail.com. What's the phone number?
Plus
Okay.
256.
The phone number I've put here some sample values. Maybe for allowance, we can say 400. Okay, let's say maybe allowance 40,000. Now, it is until when you reach the last cell here, that's when we call this, that's when all this qualify to be called a record. If you have not captured for any cell, it is not yet a record. Now, if you want to capture for the next student, you either press the enter button on your keyboard, or you move down here and click on this button called next. Down here, there is what called record selector. There is an arrow here pointing to the right here. Just after this one you are seeing, there is an arrow here called next. So you can click on it like this, and then that record is saved. Or you just press enter button on your keyboard and the form remains blank. So thank you, Morris. Can we have the next student? The next student, we are supposed to capture records of 5 students. The next student, we want a female student. The other one was male, we want a female one. Okay, let us say maybe J19. They are not taking anything. ASC stroke DBA 008. First name maybe Claire. Maybe that. And then gender, we select female. Date of birth, maybe something like that. Marital status, let us say maybe married. We are just using sample values. Age, maybe 23. Email, the phone number, and then I'm using any sample value allowance, maybe 70. And then even if I press enter like this, that record is saved. Okay, that record is saved. So these are only 2 records. I go to the third one, maybe S18, ASC, maybe 008. Okay. Then that could be the last name, gender male, date of birth, we're just using sample figures here. The phone number, I'm using any sample values. Allowance is maybe 30. We are using sample values, remember? So when I click on next, this record is saved, though when I press enter. Another student. So maybe these are the names. Hello? Hello?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay, so I'm on record number 4.
We are here.
It's fine. I'm on record number 4. Okay, so marital status, we can say married. Age, I'm using any number here. That shouldn't be a problem. Anybody called Gloria shouldn't have a problem with it, because these are just sample values for learning purpose. Allowance maybe 100. So when I click on next here or I press enter, this record is saved. Finally, the last record here for now, because time has gone. And then something like this. Gender, I can choose male. Date of birth. And then marital status, age. Maybe you can say that. So these are sample values, remember. Now, I click on next here to show that I've posted all the records. I'm done. I've captured 5 records. So I don't need this form here to remain open. I've used it to post data or to capture data. I close it from here. So I've closed the form. But how do I verify that indeed this form has posted data into my table? How do I verify that the form has posted data into my table of the database? To verify that the form has posted data, I need to go to the table here. Remember, we have 2 objects. Let's not confuse them. We have a table here called student and a form. The form is used to post data into this table because the table holds the data. So if I've used the form to enter data, I now go to the table. I now go to the table. I now go to the table. So my table is here called student. To verify that the data has been entered into the table using a form, I go to the table and just double click on it or right click on this table and I go to open. Either you go to the table name called student, double click on it or right click on it and you choose open. Because you just want to see the table and with its data. So do we see here the table has data in it? So can we confirm if we are seeing this data? Are we seeing it? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, we are seeing.
Yes, this is the table. This is not a form.
We are
Hello.
This is a confirmation that the table has received the data, but this data is being kept by the table as an object. The table was used to create a structure to enter the data. So if you go to the form is here called student form. When I double click on it, it is here. I just click on these arrows, next to go to the next record. I can even add a record here with this form. when you click on the next buttons down here, you keep on clicking next until when it is blank. For instance, I want to add a record here. I want to add another record here. We are going to check it into the form. S maybe 17 dash ASC dash DBA. Okay, let us say DBA /012. And then maybe this student is called Lydia. Maybe this student is called Lydia. Maybe this student is called Lydia. The gender is female. The date of birth could be this. This could be the date of birth. Marital status is here. Age maybe 21. I write an email here. At gmail.com, phone number, I'm using any sample values here, and then allowance maybe 20. And then I go to next, the form is blank. I close the form. To verify that this very record here of this student has been entered using the form and posted in the table, I go to the table, it is here. Double click on the table and I trace for that record. This student have been entering is called Lydia, a job, the student is here. So you can see that a form is used to post data into the table only if you created the form using those properties of the table. Now let us wind up with the third and the fourth object called the query. A query, remember, is used to show records into the table. Okay? A query is used to show records into the table. Now, how can I see all the students who are there in my database? If I want to see all the students who are in my database, then I have to design a query to show all the students. So what I do there, if I want to see all the students, then I design a query to show all the students. So I go to this tool called Create, and then there is what we call Query Wizard and Query Design. Query Wizard is appropriate, especially if you want to see all those records, when you are not going to specify, or when you are not interested in specific record. When you want all records, you use Query Wizard. So you go to Create, and then you select Query Wizard. Now, we have what we call Simple Query Wizard, Cross-Tab Query. Simple Query meaning you are producing the results within, from either one, from just one specific table. You are not fetching columns from different tables. So we leave it on Simple Query, and then you click on OK. Now the query is also like a form. It asks you for the fields that you want to appear on the query. So the query is designed based on the table. Here is our table called student. So we add the fields of the table students to the query using this double forward arrow. You can use this double backward arrow to take back the fields. But you need those fields in order to produce the query. So double forward arrow, and I go to next. Do you want detailed query or summary query? I want detailed query, the first option. Then I click on next. So what title do you want for your query? I can just add the word here, all student query, because I want it to show all the students. Then I click on finish. So you can see the all student query shows for us all the students who are in our database. There I've been interested in getting all the students, okay? I've been interested in seeing all the students. So I have to run a query like that using Query Wizard. So you can see the third object is added here. It is called a query. I can close it from here as just the way we close any object, okay? Now, on the other hand, you could be asking yourself, what about if I want, you could be asking yourself, You could be asking yourself, what if I want to see only female students? How do I go about it? If I want to see only female students, it means that I first need to understand what I mean by female. Female is a sample data that we have here in our database, but this sample data called female is found under a certain field. So this data called female can be found only under this field called gender. That means that if I want only female students, it means I have to look for the field where female, the word female or male is found. And this is found under gender. So what I do is, I have to note that this is a specific query. This query is not looking for all the students, it's looking for only female students. And we know female is data under gender. So that type of query can be designed using query design, not using query wizard. We design it using query design. However, you can also design it using query wizard. Maybe next time we shall look at how we can make the use of query design. We can also use query wizard to do it, but what you need to know is that you are looking for a specific record, okay? You are looking for a specific record here. So we can still use query wizard like this, and then click on OK, and then add the fields of our table students, then go to next. We want detailed query, yes, we click on next. Now, here under the query name, we type the name there of the query that we want female students. So the name of the query will be female students. Now, when you give the query a name, you don't click on finish. If you click on finish, it will display all students. You want only female one. So what you do this time, you move down here and choose the second option down here called modify the query design. You click on modify the query design, such that it takes you to where you can specify that I need only female. So you click on the second option, modify the query design, and you click on finish. So do you see when you click on modify the query design, it takes you to a very larger interface where you are able to modify the query indeed. So now this is our design area with the fields. We have an area here called criteria. There is a row line here called criteria. So you move along this criteria line and you go to that field where you are able to find female and male. The field is called gender. So on criteria line, we move and position the cursor on that field where you are able to find male or female. So you click on that cell under that field where you're able to find male and female data. And you just type there female. You want female students, so you just type the word female. Because you entered some data called female. So you just type that, I just want female students. So you type female. Now here you are designing the query for some specific elements. So when you specify what you want under that field, up here, there is a tool called run. Under this main tool called design, there is another tool called run. If you have specified anything in query design, you must go ahead and click on this tool called run. It's always up here. If you don't see it, you click on this button called design. So you click on run. So you see when I click on run, it displays for me the results. But your attention should be under this field called gender. Are we seeing male students? No. Under gender, we are only seeing female students. Why am I seeing only female? I was able to specify only female. So I'm able to close it from here. If you close it, you must accept to save it further because it's not saved 100%. So you click on yes, so that it is saved. So you see the number of queries are growing. What if I want to see male students? I do the same thing. I go to this tool called create, I click on query wizard, then click on OK. Add the fields from the table, click on next, and then again next. And then I remove that and say male students. And then remember, I want only male students, so I select the second option, modify the query, and then I click on finish. Male students, male is found under gender. So on this line called criteria, please, we specify the record we want using this line called criteria. So under criteria, I type there male. That what type of student do I want? Male. I just type male only. You don't type male student because the data you enter there is male, not male student. Even if they bring the word male student, don't add it there. You just type male only because that is the data you have. If you type data which doesn't exist, the query will be blank. So when I type male, I go to this tool app called run and I run it. So again, you can see under gender here, we have only male student. So I save it and close. Now, what if I want to see students whose allowance is above 40,000, and then students whose allowance is below 30,000? How do I go about these two queries? I want to stop on these two. No, I want to see students whose allowance is above 40,000 and the students are single. Do you see? There are two things here. One, I want students whose allowance is above 40,000. That is one criteria. Two, these students should be single. Okay, let us say married. These students should be married. Allowance is 40,000, is above 40,000. The students should be married. This query requires us to specify two things. One, the status married. Two, the allowance above 40. How do we do it? We can still use the same query wizard. I go to create and then query wizard and then click on OK. And then add the fields, go to next and then next. So here I want married students above 40. I'm just using sample statement for the name. But remember, you want only married ones and those ones who are earning allowance of above 40. So you have to click on modify the query design. And then I go to finish. So we need to proceed here under our query design. This is the query design interface. You must specify a certain criteria for that record to be returned. One of the criteria is that the students have to be single. So under which field do I get this single, married, and so on? I get it under marital status. So on the criteria line, I go to marital status and I type there that I need students who are single, first of all. I need students who are single. Then, still under allowance, on the same criteria line under allowance, I need students whose allowance is above 40. Above means greater than. So I put the greater than sign. Above means greater than. So I put the greater than sign and then I type the 40,000. Above is the same as greater than. Above means greater than something. So you put the greater than sign first and then you type the 40. So here we have specified two things. Marital status, single, we type it, and then the allowance and allowance, we type there greater than 40,000. After specifying all these things, we run the query up here. So I click on run. So you see. So This is the result of our query. Though it is not, I see it running with that error. Why is it bringing a status of single? I can verify the design of that query. If you want to go back to the design, you just go to the name of the query before closing it here. Right click on it and you go to design view. And then, so I type here single. Okay, that's why. So let me change it to married. Change it to now married. I had written single and then I ran the query. Okay, there are now two here. You can see. The status married. The allowances are indeed above 40. Then I close the query from here. Yes. Lastly, I want to run the last object called a report. A report is an output from your database. We design a report from a table. So to design a report, you just select your table because you have to design a report from the table. If you want to design a report from a query, you just select the query, any of these query. I want to design a report from my table, so I select the table and then click on create. And then this time you go to report and select the report wizard. You select the report wizard and then you go to next. Because you are creating a report based on a table, the report must have the fields of the table here. And then I go to next. Add my fields here. This ones just go to next. And then I add here student reports. I add here student reports. Then I click on finish. So this is your report. You can see the fourth object is added here. Where you are seeing hash values, it means the columns are small. So I can close the report from here. So all your four objects are here: the table, the query, the form, and the report. I can create a report for any query here. I can select, for instance, I can select male student. I select it from here, a query called male student, then go to create, and then I select something called report wizard. Then I add the fields here, then go to next. I can choose even a different layout, let's say columnar here, and maybe orientation, landscape. Orientation is the appearance, either vertical or horizontal. So the vertical one is portrait, the horizontal one is landscape. Then I click on next, and then I click on finish. So you see, this is the report for female students. You can see down here the date and even the page numbers. So I close my report from here. These are the four objects of our database. And we have designed our database. We can't go beyond this. We have been here for 2 hours, and therefore,
Excuse me, sir.
Here. Let me hear from people, and we close the session.
Yes, excuse me.
To your various groups. Yes. I can hear you.
Like you will first select. You will first select if you want to create a form. So by selecting, you right click.
If you want to create a form, or if you want to create a report.
Report. I mean a report.
Yes, you.
Which option is that?
What I'm saying is, are you getting me?
Yes, I'm getting you.
I am saying a report is an output. It is a summary of information from your database. Now, you create a report either from a table or from a query. The report is created from either a table or a query. So you need to select what you are creating the report from. If you are creating a report from the table, you first click on the table. You just click. Remember, your objects are here. You don't right click. You just click on it once. You don't right click. You just point on it and press the left button of your mouse. That is the clicking. Now, when you select that object, like a table like this, then you go to create, and then now you can now proceed with what we call report wizard. Selecting it means that the software will automatically now pick that very.
Amfuri mati only that kirkodaya amefura mfano
It will pick that very object and create its report. That's why we need to select it. So, for instance, see this. I want to create a report for all students. So what I do, I want to create a report for all student query. For this query, I call all students. I just click on it, not double click. I just select it by clicking on it once like this. That means I'm creating a report for this object I've selected. Then I go to create and then report wizard. Click on report wizard. Now, the moment you select it, it is the one that will appear in this area automatically as table query. And then you add its fields, and then you go to next, next, and then next. And then you choose your layout. And then maybe even columnar, orientation. And then you give it maybe a name, all student reports. So this is your report. If the number, you can see a page 1 of 3, so I go down to this next button up to when I'm seeing page 3 of 3. So this is how we create our report. You create it from either a query or a table. Any other question? Any other question? If there is no question, I have another class. I would like to close this session, and I will work with this recording and send it to your
Excuse me, sir. Maybe you send for us the sample paper too for practice.
Yes, I will send the practice guide.
Hello.
In terms of the question and this tutorial here. Rather, and this class here, such that you are able to follow up.
Yeah.
Charati. Only 0.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Ngoni. Muke.
Hello.
Excuse me, sir.
Who is saying Ngoni and somewhere there? Yes, yes.
Sir, some of us are not accessing the platform.
The course page you are not accessing.
Yeah, we are not accessing the DBS students.
Okay, you are students of which campus?
Main campus, you see. My WhatsApp number is there on your
No,
group.
it's a
Can you send me your access numbers and I try to add you people there? Send me your access numbers on my WhatsApp and I try to add you there.
Like right?
Yes, send your access number on my WhatsApp.
Maybe read for me.
0774.
Oh, yes. Can you read for me your number?
774.
Read for me your number.
The number is 774. 56.
Yes.
774 56
56
83 8322.